So we just had a massive blue wave for Democrats in the country. But all of it was jeopardized in a single moment when Mandami was informed of the late, great Dick Cheney's passing. When he was asked, as he's about to cast his vote the morning of, as Dick Cheney died 2 days ago, whether or not he had heard of his passing. And you could see on his face, it's like somebody had just smacked him. He thinks of what he says, and he avoids the fumble, the worst fumble, at the not a 1 yard line. This is half a foot. This is a half a foot till the end zone. And he decides to say nothing. Smartest decision of his life.
When did that happen?
Just earlier this morning.
It was 2 to 3 seconds. Immediately realizes there's no victory. There's no benefit in talking about this, of him deciding on the day of Dick Cheney's death to talk about Dick Cheney while he's voting actively to just put some more sting on it. And he decides to just keep his head down smartly. I gotta say, Zoran Mandami is an acute and intelligent. He's very much when it comes to situational awareness as a politician. He's very intelligent. He knows how to engage during interviews. He knows how to come off very authentically. He, was able to come back from behind with a media campaign that could crack, with a good team around him. And he knows how to, since coming into the public spotlight and the type of things he said before, in spite of the types of things he said before, he's been able to avoid controversy relatively well, considering what was already out there on him. And anytime somebody gives him an ability to mess up, he says no. He says no. And I think one example of this would have to be he is not going to associate with anybody that does more damage to him and his campaign and his movement than they could bring into it. One example of that being a popular streamer, Hasan Piker, who was at the Mandami party, the party by which, hey, let's go celebrate who won, et cetera, et cetera. But he was not invited upstairs to where, I guess you could say the VIPs were welcome. And he seemed to be boxed out. This is after he had also been condemned on the debate stage by Mamdani when he was asked about him, since Hasan had previously said that America deserved 9/11. And while running to be mayor of New York, no. This type of dialogue and the way he's talked around the war on Gaza got him boxed out of the DNC, and the way he talked about 9/11 got him boxed out of one of the most popular socialist campaigns in the country. Let's show this refusal of entry.
I do not have you for the upstairs list.
Okay.
Can I see your ticket type?
Oh, I'm staff.
Oh, okay. Oh, okay.
Okay.
You're
So we can't
escorted?
go upstairs.
So they're not on the list for upstairs?
I do not. But do you have this wristband? I can also just check the chat.
Well, so I thought those could go upstairs, no?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Damn.
But I can double check and just make sure
Upstairs
on my
just
end.
more seating area.
Yeah, I just wanted a drink. I'm good.
Just so I can.
Or here.
What was your name? Sorry. Michael. Okay, great. Let me just make sure on my back channel.
Now, look, some people might say Hasan Piker, he brings a lot of viewers. He brings a lot of people who might canvass in order to hang around with him. He can bring an audience that comes with him. That is true. But you're also running in New York. You're not running in Portland. You're not running in Seattle. You're running in New York. And Hasan Piker said that America deserved 9/11. Now, considering that New York is full of 9/11 victims and, people who remember that day, and you're running as the first openly Muslim candidate to try to, actually achieve the mayorship in New York, which was ground zero for the biggest Islamic terror attack in American history, him associating himself with somebody saying that is just giving Andrew Cuomo ammunition he could have used to undermine him. And so him distancing himself from him on the debate stage, him distancing himself from him after taking a picture with him being denied entry to the party upstairs, I think it makes sense. Even if you were to isolate the factor purely and solely on the 9/11, the 9/11 element of the election. But it's not just that. It's also that Hasan plays fast and loose with some of the things he said. And while on the floor, shortly after embracing Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, one of the most famous American socialists in the country right now, he said that the fall of the Soviet Union was bad, that it was unfortunate that the Soviet Union lost the Cold War, that the United States was victorious in that diplomatic endeavor.
Done.
What do you think it means that this guy ran as a socialist and anti-communism didn't work to stop him? That's big.
Yeah, I think we are in the heart of the imperial core. This is the country that defeated the USSR, unfortunately. And the reality of the matter is, there's a lot of antagonism. There's no class consciousness in the United States of America. It's one of the things I try to address every day with my commentary. And I will say this. Conditions have deteriorated so much that everyday Americans, in spite of their lack of class consciousness, are finally arriving at the conclusion that perhaps there is an alternative out there. There is an alternative that focuses on them as opposed to the interests of the billionaires and the millionaires, as opposed to the interests of the capital owners. And I mean, you can't help but notice that. You can't help but feel at least a little bit of excitement around that.
Look, Mamdani wants to be a socialist, not a socialist. He wants to be, like universal health care and public transportation and strong unions and workers' right and strong regulations to protect the safety of workers and seeing that workers are properly compensated for their labor and that they have the right to collective bargaining and making sure that if people want to participate in cooperative ownership, they can. Like, these are the types of things that he would want to be more associated with. Investments in rehabilitative programs and policing instead of there's a bunch of things that he would like to be associated with. Oh, I'm much more Denmark than Joseph Stalin. I'm much more Sweden than I am Pol Pot. That's the pitch, is that the image that Americans have of socialists, communists, the Marxist scourge which hides under us, the red menace which preys upon our nation. They have this image that was built by Cold War era propaganda and just the behavior of the Soviet Union. What they did to the Ukrainian people in mass starvation, what they did to the Kazakh people in mass starvation, what they did in the mass ethnic cleansing campaigns of Koreans and others in population and demographic management, the environmental damage that they did, the repression of civil liberties, the repressive of uprisings, the horrific bombing of different countries like Afghanistan or others that could be named. And so people look at that record and they look at the legacy that it left behind ideologically, and they look at the legacy that it left behind in reality when it comes to Poland, Romania, and these countries that no longer wanted to be part of the Soviet Union. And for you to look at that and say, woohoo, that's for me, that Mandami should keep a million miles away from that. We are friendly socialists. We are Eugene Debs he's referencing during his speech. Okay? He's not referencing Vladimir Lenin. He's not referencing Joseph Stalin or Khrushchev or Brezhnev or any of these figures that would probably be best left at the chopping block when it comes to making your Americanized version of socialism. The lack of civil liberties and the differences between our countries, between our systems, and between our values made it so that if you ever wanted to make this system of values work in this country, it has to be freedom and individual liberty focused. It has to be made for the people of the United States. And so if you're spending time with people who are not only like say, 9/11, we deserved it, but is putting aside any of a structural critique he wants to attach to that, but is going out there and endorsing Soviet Union's victory in the Cold War, wanting the Soviet Union to beat the United States, meaning the Soviet Union wouldn't have left Romania, wouldn't have left these countries. And the model, which, the Solidarity movement, which, the armed chained movement, and all these different movements that fought against Soviet occupation and eventually won when previous attempts like the Hungarian uprising or the German uprisings had failed. I think that this is just bad voodoo. This is bad voodoo. This is bad vibes for somebody who's trying to rebrand socialism with a friendly face, especially since, look, I don't mean to diminish the significance of a socialist winning in the capital of capital in the United States, New York City. I don't want to diminish that. But he ran against a Turkish-owned and widely despised mayor, the groper-in-chief, Andrew Cuomo, who tries to explain his harassment away with Italianness, who was pumping out AI video after AI video and is widely not liked. And the legacy passed down to him, politics-wise, by his father, was not enough to get him in the primary. Why would it be enough to get him in the general? And then you've got the Republican Curtis Sila, because you need your election crackpot. He wasn't exactly going against Marvin Hagler and Sugar Ray Leonard and Muhammad Ali and Rocky Marciano and Willie Pep. He wasn't going against like Terrence Crawford and Usyk. He's not going against the cream of the crop. He's not going against the best of the best. He just isn't. This ain't no Triple G. Okay, he is fighting tin cans when it comes to the image that they had on election day. Andrew Cuomo 20 years ago is Andrew Cuomo 20 years ago, but the image that he had on election day was garbage. Run him against a less flawed Democratic opposition candidate. Run him against a undivided other candidate in the general. Run him in another city where the type of a messaging that he puts out, this type of mini big tent messaging where he's going up there, oh, I'm reaching out to all the abuelas and all the Uzbek nurses and where that type of messaging might not work, but the affordability might. How can that be tweaked to work in communities that don't look like his? Because a lot of people are trying to take from this national implications, and I think it should be restricted. The national implication should be focused on the idea that the issue of affordability of housing is very big, that Democrats and Americans want bigger, bolder plans, and that in the Democratic base right now, fighting against Trump is still king. And that, tying yourself to Trump in any name, in any way, whether it be Andrew Cuomo or Eric Adams, it was killers for both of their campaigns. So those are the things that should probably be taken away electorally. Whether or not, his type of branding as a Democratic socialist or, how he's talked about other types of politics will particularly work outside of New York, that is yet to be seen. I think his policy wonking on affordability, and that as a focus of it as an issue, he led the way on figuring that out, focusing on that, and putting that forward on the campaign trail. Where Harris talked about, oh, well, maybe we can talk about a tax credit for first-time home buyers of $10,000 when trying to put forward money to get their house. But what about somebody who's a renter? What about somebody who's not getting a house? What about general housing affordability? What about something that has more universal appeal? And so that's my question also. How could you take Mandami, take the good from the bad, and try to apply that universally outside of New York? Because just trying to run the same candidate that you ran in New York somewhere else ain't going to work. It ain't going to work. You ain't going to get Uzbek nurses in all parts of the country, in places like Iowa or places like Montana. But if you want to get John Tester's seat back, you're going to have to figure out somebody to run over there. And so national implications, reel it in outside of affordability and the boldness in policy and the fact that Trump is not necessarily a winner here, even though we're going to have to wait until something Trumpian is more on the ballot again to really test that theory. It's still a big victory for Mandami and a big victory for his more pragmatic type of campaigning based on authenticity and distancing themselves from purity testing. From purity testing and pointless scandal. If someone brings more baggage than produce to the campaign, no need for them to associate. Okay. Now let's talk about everything else.